So, hello, my name's Rob from Colicci, and I am on my first origin trip, coffee origin trip to Brazil. The wonderful Fabio Ferreira from Notes, who they roast all of our coffee, he's brought me here to the Da Terra coffee farm, which is essentially in Cerrado Mineiro. So we caught a flight to Sao Paulo. We then caught another flight to somewhere which I can't pronounce, into the middle of Brazil, and we took a 3-hour van and we are now here. Yeah, and it's really cool. We're just learning all about coffee and the coffee plants and how they start life as a little seed in the nursery that's just through there. They start, believe it or not, in sand and water, 3 months, and then they are transferred into this nursery, which I'm in right now, where they spend another 2 to 3 months just getting a lot stronger, more resilient. As you can see, sort of the leaves are pretty robust, ready to be transferred out into the coffee farm, where they will grow into a fully fledged coffee tree. So yeah, just soaking it all up at the minute. Yesterday we were at Da Terra Coffee Farm. Today we've come to Rio Brilhante, which translated means brilliant river. And we are seeing a lot more flower on the trees here. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm going to try and explain this, and it smells incredible. So what we have here is a tree, 6 years old. It's the Catucaí variety. And this is the second flower. So as you can see here, this was the first flower that's fallen off, and now we've got some coffee beans that are growing here. These flowers here are the second flower. So in the next couple of days, the flowers will only last about 4 to 5 days. So by Sunday, these will fall off the tree and you'll start to see the little bean come through. And apparently, according to our wonderful technician, Ronaldo, who's just behind the camera, this will get a third flower. And again, that is a sign of really good irrigation, really good rainfall. It's been a pretty tough season in Brazil. Lots of sunshine, not much rain, but the irrigation in this place is actually all underground. So there's pipes underground, and they time exactly when they use it, using water that they store and divert from the local river. So it's all sort of water that they store in a dam, essentially, and they'll use that at exactly the precise time to get these flowers, which is why we're probably seeing a lot better flowers here. So yeah, amazing. We're now at the third farm. It's called FAF Brazil, and this is an organic coffee farm. And I'm learning what it means to be organic, and it's absolutely fascinating. Immediately, you're surrounded by so many different species of bees and wasps. You can probably hear them in the air. And essentially, it's all about the soil. There's no pesticides, no herbicides sprayed on the plants. And as you can see, one of the common complaints of people why they don't farm organic is that the yield is a lot worse because of the lack of pesticides and the lack of herbicides. The plants are a lot more susceptible to bugs and to dying. Well, you can see that a lot of the coffee plants around me are flowering. So what Felipe, the coffee farmer here, has done, he's created a scale called high nature value, 0 to 3, and then organic. So 0, 1, 2, 3 and organic. 0 being essentially what you'd find as Rainforest Alliance coffee. So it's monoculture. Monoculture meaning you plant coffee in one place, you irrigate, you plant, you irrigate, you don't move the coffee to different plots because that's really good for the soil to inject life into it. Here, what he's doing, he's created sort of when you get to scales 2 and 3, you're planting lots of trees, 3 being 50 or more trees per hectare. So you can see we've got some trees here, all of which are bringing different life into the soil. So essentially those cover crops that are planted in between the trees, they're essentially weeds, grasses, oats, things like that, that again will be bringing life into the soil. And then when they die, they'll throw them around the coffee plant. So you can see a lot of sort of like leaves around the coffee trees, and they'll decompose and they'll bring a richness into the soil. It's just fascinating to see, and there's a lot more noise around this coffee farm. Here in one of the plots at FAF, Brazil, and João has just been explaining to me sort of the process of planting coffee trees. Earlier on I was explaining sort of cover crops. So we've got a lot of, these are cover crops, a lot of sort of weeds, grasses that are going to bring some richness to the soil, and when they die, they will be placed in between the coffee trees to essentially decompose into the soil and give some richness into the soil. So how they're planting these coffee trees is in lines of 3, and then over here we've got some coffee trees. Sorry, not trees, different trees. That some are large, some are small pioneer trees, and the intention of these trees is to essentially not only create shade but bring in some nitrogen into the soil that will help the soil regenerate and effectively take a lot of carbon from the air and bring it into the soil. So, and it's something they're learning a lot about. You know, what trees, each tree brings something different to the soil, so they're not all the same tree, and it's research that is developing. They don't use any pesticides or herbicides here, so they've got to think of really clever ways to essentially, you know, fight off the pests and the bugs. And one of the things that they do is they create their own organic fungi that they spray on the coffee trees that essentially will make the coffee trees a lot more resilient, and essentially it goes into the soil, and from what I understand, it creates this network of coffee trees that are all connected together. So the coffee trees become a lot stronger, and then when the first flower comes, it's essentially like the coffee trees are all speaking to each other. So one coffee tree flowers and they all know that it's time to flower. And when these trees will become a lot bigger and grow, they'll, just by simply pruning them, a bit like a haircut, when you cut your hair grows back faster. By simply pruning them, the trees release a hormone that goes into the soil, and and essentially again gives life and strength to the coffee trees. So yeah, it's quite a fascinating farm, and just, you know, doing some incredible practices, and it's essentially all about the soil and soil health. Soil is health. João, one of the farmers here, has just been explaining to me the soil and a little bit more about how the soil is so rich here. It's something fascinating. Across this whole farm, there is absolutely zero irrigation. There's no water whatsoever. So the trees here really rely on the rainfall, natural resource. But obviously, going back to what we were talking about in terms of no pesticides and herbicides, and using things like cover crops to bring that richness and those nutrients into the soil, given that there's been no rain, almost 100 days of no rain, the moisture and the smell of this soil is so rich, and it's essentially nature's agents, as João was explaining it to me, which is insects, microorganisms that are just going to work in the soil. And as you can see, the coffee tree is still flowering, it's still producing coffee, and I can't get over the amount of bees that there are around me. And apparently Felipe earlier on was telling me that they had a leading Brazilian agronomist come and do some tests about the connection to bees and coffee, and they found out that just having bees and wasps around the coffee trees, they were 25% more productive, better yield, which is fascinating, which is something that you just wouldn't get if you had lots of pesticides and herbicides. So yeah, quite fascinating and really impressive.
Arrasa.
Arrasa.
Arasa.